Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Walker with Medical Device Academy, and today I'm going to discuss briefly the why and how to qualify outside assistance for the literature search and review of your clinical evaluation report. I'll start with a brief introduction into the literature search and review for your CER, give you some reasons for why you might want to outsource, and what you might have an outside consultant do to assist you with your project, some relevant qualifications to look for in the consultants you may outsource to, and I will end with a gratuitous self-promotion of the services offered at Medical Device Academy. Your clinical evaluation report is going to form an interrelated cyclical relationship with your post-market surveillance and your risk management processes. It's going to start with the initial background literature search for the development of your clinical evaluation report to begin with. And for your post-market surveillance, as your product is on the market, you're going to be conducting multiple recurring literature search and reviews in order to update your CER. And those updates in the initial search is going to be data that feeds into your risk management process, and that data will be used to either confirm your risk management efforts or will provide an example to changes you may need to affect in your device and the manufacture process. So by itself, the literature search and evaluation can quickly become a monumental task. And because it involves so many different areas, this is a reason why you may need outside assistance to help you with the project. And it anything from protocol development, confirmation of inclusion-exclusion criteria, selecting your databases, performing initial, secondary screenings, double screenings, QC checks, data compilation, final report generation, and you may be running multiple searches and evaluations for different indications of use for your device. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for just one person to do. So not only can it be a large task, it is a task that you have to do. And it's not something you can escape from in the new regulation EU 2017/745. The term literature review is specifically mentioned 4 times, and it's mentioned in relation to the clinical evaluation report, notified body evaluations, and your clinical investigation plan. To dig into the background of some of the literature review references, we can see for your clinical evaluation, you have to continuously conduct and document your clinical evaluation. And one of the ways to do that is through a systematic scientific literature review. And because you must do this continuously, this is one of the reasons why you will be doing more than the initial literature search and review. You'll be doing this maybe annually, every couple of years, depending on the risks to your device. And it's part of maintaining and updating your clinical evaluation report. So one of the reasons to qualify any outside help you bring in to work on your project for your search and review and to update your clinical evaluation report is that your notified body is going to take a look at this information. So you need to approach it from a manner that any data that's gathered needs to be able to maintain its scientific and clinical integrity. This is not work that's going to be put into a filing cabinet and collect dust, never to see the light of day again. Your notified body is going to evaluate the work that was done. Another reason is that, again, in the regulation, this is required work that it simply needs to be done. And as you can see from this quote here in subsection 3.2, it's just an expected part of your clinical evaluation plan that you're going to be doing literature reviews. So why might you outsource work on your clinical evaluation report at all? And the first most simple answer is because of the scope of the document and its maintenance activities. The longer your device is on market, the larger your clinical evaluation report is inevitably going to become, simply because there will be more data out there that needs to be evaluated and analyzed. Uh, Ideally, when you're doing this kind of work, you're going to need a multidisciplinary team. So you might need to bring in clinical experts to help evaluate the data that you do receive. Uh, because of the manpower intensity for some of these projects, it can cut down the overall project time if you have, more hands make less work. And if you bring in people outside of your company, it can help you improve the quality of your reports because it can reduce biased sampling and grading, simply because the third party doesn't have the same attachment to your device that you might. And even if you are blessed enough to have the in-house capabilities, a third party can easily double screen or do QC verifications on screenings and gradings just to help improve the quality of the final outputs from your search and evaluations. So what might outside help do to push the project along? Well, in actuality, you could outsource the entire project or any element of it. This is something that can be scaled to meet the demands of your project and the resources you have available. So some additional areas that an outside consultant could help you do. You could find somebody that could write the search protocols, can help you define your inclusion-exclusion criteria for the protocol. You could have somebody perform the search itself, and bonus points if you get a hold of a company that has the software to automate it. Third party could perform quality control or double screen the articles, partly because the evaluation is a human process and it never hurts to have a second set of eyes go over and verify the information collected the first time around. You might need to have a clinical expert come in to evaluate the data that is collected. And you might need to have somebody experienced in statistics and infographics come in and compile that data and generate some of your final reports. So because this is an area that your notified body is going to look at when they do reviews, you need to make sure that you have appropriately vetted the consultants that are assisting you with these projects. This is not something that you should be throwing at a day one intern. And most manufacturers are going to have a person that is designated for regulatory affairs and quality assurance. And these are the types of people that are very knowledgeable in the applicable regulations and standards, and they probably knew which annexes I was going to reference. But if you're having a consultant help with these, you should make sure that you are qualifying the supplier of these services, especially if you happen to also market your device in the United States, and perhaps maybe if you're maintaining ISO 13485. You can qualify your consulting services as suppliers. Even though it's not a physical product, they are supplying a service, and you need to make sure that the person you are getting the services from are competent and have the appropriate education and training. So just because you have in-house RA personnel doesn't always mean that they're automatically great technical or medical writers. And it doesn't always mean that, just the de facto QMS person is going to be familiar with navigating databases, such as Medline or Embase, and that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be familiar with statistical methodologies or that they have the clinical experience and education to truly evaluate the clinical risks of the device based off of the information gathered in the search and review. And furthermore, there are actual standards out there for who you should allow anywhere near any portion of your clinical evaluation report. And specifically, as the manufacturer, if you're going to be compliant with MEDDEV 2.7/1 revision 4, specifically section 6.4, they state that the manufacturer should be able to justify who they picked. And that's going to be through a review and maintenance of their resume. I would suggest that if you're having outside consultants working with your literature search and review, you should be collecting the resumes of the team you have working on it so that you can include that in part of the report. That's a portion of your clinical evaluation report that I had these people and they're qualified for these reasons to do this work. And some of the things you should be looking at is finding people who know research methodologies, clinical investigation design, biostatistics, information management, experience with relevant databases, technical medical writing, and relevant experience in education. And that's why I say that this isn't day one intern work, but you need to be able to make sure that the person that's working on it is competent to work on it. Now, these are a lot of areas in a lot of not necessarily similar fields. Somebody designing clinical investigations may not be a biostatistician. So when I suggested earlier that it may be appropriate to have a multidisciplinary team, it's because there's a lot of jobs that are involved in this, and it's okay to get relevant experts in these niche areas to perform that work. Unless you happen to find somebody who is an de facto expert in all of these areas. In that case, they're a unicorn and you lock them away and don't ever let them escape. But you should be making sure that those you do have work on it are competent in the relevant areas for the work that they are performing. So earlier when I mentioned the collection of the resumes, that is part of what I was hinting about for supplier qualification, that you are hiring outside work that could affect the quality of your device, and you should be qualifying the suppliers of those services to verify their competency. So besides just a college degree, some of the things you can look for to make sure that the person you're having help work on your CER is qualified to do what they're doing is look for organizations like RAPS, AMRA, or the NIH. A lot of universities have supplemental certification training in some of these areas. Now, I'm not a doctor myself, and I don't claim to be a doctor, but what I am is a technical and medical writer. And I also happen to be a Regulatory Affairs Professional Society member. They stuffed me in the Boston chapter. Uh, if that Not that that means anything, but anyone who says that they have relevant experience should be able to provide you with possibly a literal mountain of certificates and the trainings that they've taken. Because I'm a RAPS member, I've taken advantage of the certification courses that they offer, and I've taken many of their medical writing classes. Uh, if you were to ask, hey, can you do some technical writing on this topic, I would be able to provide you with the resume and copies of these certificates so that years down the road, when your notified body is examining the work that I did for you, they will see, oh, okay, this person performing this work knows what they're doing for these reasons. So why is this vetting and qualification process so important and so involved? The reason this is so important is because what we're doing with the literature search and review is gathering clinical data on your device. Now, the 2017/745, they define clinical data, and one of the means to collect clinical data is through that same literature search and review we've been talking about. And not only can you be doing this literature search for your device, but for a device that's equivalent to your device as well. So if you're producing a glucometer, you should be looking at the clinical data you can gather on other glucometers that have been studied. And again, if you happen to be in other markets like the US by chance, if you've gotten approval through a 510K, you should also be looking at clinical data for the predicate device that you claimed on your 510K. I'm going to apologize in advance for this particular slide, but in order to accurately describe the process that we're going through and the outcomes we're hoping to achieve, I have to say the word clinical an unhealthy amount of times. But just be aware that if you look in the same definition section as we talked about earlier, every time I say the word clinical, the following terms are a definition within the regulation. But this is so important because this is clinical data that we're going to be collecting through clinical evaluations. As we have outlined within our clinical investigation plan, in order to collect clinical evidence of both clinical performance and ideally clinical benefit for your device. Again, just another regulatory citation for why I'm harping on this topic so much is the qualification of these service suppliers I've been talking about is just part of good housekeeping. So if you go back to Regulation EU 2017/745, Article 10, General Obligations of Manufacturers, Section 10D, specifically includes as resource management the selection and control of suppliers and subcontractors. So that's going to include the consultants you have working on your literature search and review or other areas of your clinical evaluation report. So it's not entirely uncommon to find manufacturers that have devices on the markets of both participating member states of the European Union and the United States. And much of what we're talking about, even though it's specific to the literature search of a clinical evaluation report, and those are EU regulations, if you are hoping to in the future or currently market your device in the United States, it's easier to kill two birds with one stone and make sure that you're simultaneously following the regulations of both governing bodies. And if you're going to control your suppliers as an outside resource, you might as well control them as purchasing controls through 21 CFR Section 820.50. Section A includes consultants again, that they are managed as suppliers, even though it's not a physical thing they're supplying, it's a service that they're supplying. That should be controlled and qualified as well. And it's just something that you might not be in the United States market yet, but something to consider if you're hoping to expand there. So, in the context of this discussion, most of what I've been talking about has been in reference to development and maintenance of your clinical evaluation report, which would be a European regulation. However, if you look to the United States in Title 21, the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 822, if you have an applicable device, you can use everything we talked about for the post-market surveillance of your device within the United States as well. So even though it's been in the context of your clinical evaluation report, you can do these same activities as part of your post-market surveillance. Gratuitous self-promotion time. Oh, thank you very much. This has been my discussion on who to trust with your clinical evaluation report. And I would like to end with just giving you some information on Medical Device Academy and some of the services that we offer. And we specialize mainly in regulatory submissions for the United States, participating member states of the European Union, and Canada. That can include applications such as 510Ks, de novo, or CE marking. We also offer consulting with quality management systems. We even offer our very own turnkey quality system if you are a startup medical device manufacturer, or if you've gotten yourself in a situation where a complete teardown and rebuild is necessary. We also offer individual procedures, protocols, templates. We can perform gap analysis checks, and we have an entire library available of webinar trainings. And if your device is entering the United States market, we also offer e-copy validation and shipping services for a flat fee, or for hourly consulting. We can review and make corrections to e-copy submissions before they get shipped. If you would like to contact us, I have the contact information on the screen now. You can either get a hold of our president, Robert Packard, by phone, email, or Skype, or if you follow the link in the description, you can schedule a phone call with him through his Calendly link. If you need to get a hold of me, you can contact me at my email, matthew@fdaecopy.com. More information will be available in the description below. And thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.